Thank you, Professor Gordon and Dr. Tucker, for convening this panel to discuss Dr. Gordon and my work on dynamic pedagogy. I also wish to thank the panelists in advance for their commentaries and our guests for joining this session. My remarks today focus on several propositions underlying the conceptualization of dynamic pedagogy. Specifically, I address 4 enduring questions in the teaching learning literature. 1. What does it mean to become a learned person? What role does teaching play in enabling students to become learning persons? How is evidence generated to inform change in learning and teaching? And 4, how is learner variability addressed in teaching learning practices? The literature on teaching and learning at the classroom level has long examined questions from multiple perspectives. In our recent book on the principles of dynamic pedagogy, Professor Gordon and I sought to contribute to this dialogue by clarifying how teaching and learning interact dynamically in support of learning with understanding. The first 2 questions are addressed by our dynamic pedagogy framework, in which dynamic pedagogy conceptualizes teaching and learning as an adaptive system in which the 3 interdependent pedagogical components of teaching, curriculum, instruction, and assessment, interact continuously with learners' cognitive and metacognitive processes across a learning cycle. Each pedagogical component informs and is informed by the others. Pedagogical decision-making evolves responsively to evidence of student thinking. The focus of pedagogical assessment shifts from merely evaluating students' product to understanding how students engage in cognitive and metacognitive process when they are activating the relevant prior knowledge, constructing and consolidating new disciplinary knowledge, transferring new knowledge to novel or unfamiliar context. Thus, the triadic interdependence of curriculum, instruction, and assessment must respond not only to what students produce, but how they reason, how they interpret, monitor, regulate, reflect on their thinking. In this sense, cognitive and metacognitive processes serve as the engine of the dynamic pedagogy system. Within this framework, learning with understanding represents our conception of what it means for students to become learning persons. It is enabled when students' cognitive sense-making and metacognitive regulations are treated as moving targets, continuously shaped through participation in teaching learning activities across a learning cycle. Together, these processes describe the developmental trajectory through which disciplinary understanding evolves over time, while cognitive and metacognitive capacities mature simultaneously. For the third question about generating evidence of learning with understanding, instruction-embedded assessment and curriculum-embedded assessment tasks are used to elicit information about how learners use cognitive and metacognitive processes across the learning cycle. Next, these data are analyzed for patterns in learners' cognitive and metacognitive processes, including how learners interpret concepts, how they monitor their understanding, and regulate their strategy. Finally, inferences are made from the analysis of the evidence to determine pedagogical implications. In other words, such inferences inform adaptive decisions regarding the interdependent relationships among curriculum, instruction, assessment in order to support further learning. For learners, feedback derived from these inferential processes help address questions such as, what do I understand? What requires revision? What strategies should I use next? Thus, evidence functions not only to guide teaching decisions, but also to support learners' self-regulation and learning and agency in their learning. For the fourth question about how learners' variability is addressed, dynamic pedagogy treats learner variability as a normative condition of teaching and learning rather than an exception. This means that in designing interdependent pedagogical tasks, as well as in learners' response to them, learner variability must be anticipated and not remediated after the fact. Examples of addressing learner variability within dynamic pedagogy include multiple representation of disciplinary ideas and tasks, multiple pathways towards shared conceptual goals, common cognitive and metacognitive targets supported by flexible learning trajectories, opportunities for learners to use varied sensory and symbolic modalities in responding to learners' tasks. In terms of future directions, a continuing research and development agenda needed to be further operationalized the principles of dynamic pedagogy in classroom practice. Such work is essential for demonstrating how adaptive teaching-learning interactions can strengthen the relationship between pedagogy and learners' development of learning with understanding. Ultimately, dynamic pedagogy aims to contribute to a coherent vision of teaching in which curriculum, instruction, and assessment function interdependently to support the growth of disciplinary knowledge, cognitive and metacognitive in all learners. Thank you very much.